The Manhattan DA's office says it will press ahead with its murder prosecution despite Mangione's guilty plea. They said, in part, we are encouraged that Mr. Thompson's family received a measure of accountability today. The Manhattan DA's office remains committed to seeking justice for Mr. Thompson and his family. But will the judge even allow the state murder case to go forward? Let's ask high-profile defense attorney Mark Geragos. We've also got former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi with us right now. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Mark, I'll start with you. This double jeopardy issue, it's a murder charge in state court. It was the stalking charges in federal court. Do you think this will work? Will they actually be able to kill the state charges?
Well, they've got a pretty good argument, and ironically, the last high-profile case where there was double jeopardy was a case against Paul Manafort, President Trump's then or erstwhile campaign manager. He was represented by none other than the current, just this week newly minted Attorney General Todd Blanche, and the prosecutor or assistant to Cyrus Vance, who was the then DA, was none other than Karen Agnifilo, who's now the defense lawyer, as you mentioned, or Jessica mentioned. Almost simultaneously with the entering of this plea, they filed in state court the motion barring retrial or trial on grounds of double jeopardy. I'm not sure that this is the end of the story. I think that the expansive nature of what Luigi said in federal court was designed to leave no daylight for the prosecutor in state court. However, I can see that they'll make a couple of different arguments, not the least of which is that the gun charge could survive. And they could also argue that until he's sentenced in federal court, it's not a conviction and it's not a bar.
I want to play for you both. As we've seen with a lot of these hearings, there were supporters of him outside of Luigi Mangione, outside the courthouse. Listen to what one of them had to say.
Yeah, I thought Luigi's statement was obviously well thought out, but it seemed like he was saying, you know, I'm standing on what I did. I'm not taking it back. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily sorry about it. He actually doubled down a couple times, and I think that was kind of satisfying for me to hear.
I mean, what she says, Gene, is true in the sense that he was still trying to justify what he did by citing his back problems and problems with the American healthcare system. Was that, I mean, could that hurt him, Gene, when it comes to the judge and how he decides to sentence him?
Well, if he were in the Eastern District of Virginia, that would have hurt him big time with the judge. I don't know what it's going to do in the Southern District, but I can tell you this. If he shows no remorse, and it appeared at the guilty plea, he didn't show a lot of remorse. He never said, I'm sorry. And those words are very important for a sentencing. So did he help himself at the guilty plea? No. Is he maybe going to have an epiphany at sentencing and back off from the, I had a bad back, and therefore I assassinated Mr. Thompson? If he backs off from that, he may get a shorter sentence. But I got to say this, and I want to follow up with Mark, what Mark said. If he gets a decent sentence federally, and I understand his sentencing federally is in December, say he gets 50 years or life, I can't imagine that the judge is not going to really think about whether the double jeopardy law applies, number one. And number two, then you have this argument, well, what's the point of going forward with the state charge? You're going to get murder, but he essentially admitted murder in the stalking charge. So I got to say this. The attorneys for Mr. Mangione brilliantly played chess, and they got to the courthouse door in the federal court and threw a cherry bomb in the courtroom of the state judge and the prosecutor, and that's going to cause them a lot of agita, as they say. And I predict, I'm not a betting man, I don't go to Vegas very much, I think there's a 75% chance this judge in the state system is going to rule that the double jeopardy law does prevent a second prosecution. Even if she rules in favor of the prosecution, you're going to have an appeal. And I don't think there's going to be a trial of Mr. Mangione in state court for many moons, if at all.
You mentioned he didn't really show much remorse, Gene. I want to play for both of you his attorney, Karen Agnifilo. She spoke after the plea today. Listen to what she said.
As Luigi explained in court today, he endured years of severe, debilitating pain following a broken back while struggling to navigate our healthcare and health insurance systems. He believed that the system had failed him and destroyed his life.
What do you make of this, Mark? Because instead of just coming out and maybe saying something about the, the victim and the family was there for the first time and maybe trying to get in good graces with the judge ahead of the sentencing, even the attorney there was talking about the failed healthcare system and almost like justifying, in a sense, what Luigi Mangione did.
Well, there's going to have to be some kind of an explanation at some point of why he pled. I mean, there's been, as you mentioned, and you and I watched the other night, there are some very fervent supporters. And you just played, or Jessica did, a supporter who was talking about, he kind of doubled down and gave his reasons for it. I would imagine, I don't know, I'm not a fly on the wall, but I would imagine that during the discussions with the lawyer, that the client said, okay, I will plead, but I'm not going to go to where you want me to go, because I know that most defense lawyers, you're reflexive, and I'm sure Gene has been there, your reflexive move to the client is you got to show remorse, you got to show contrition. If you don't show remorse and contrition, and if it's not authentic, you can expect that somebody is going to send a message, because you are not going to want to be in a position where you have to, at sentencing, whether it's in December or beyond, where you have to listen to victim impact statements from kids or the mother of the kids who don't have a father, and then say, and he's never shown any remorse and he's never shown any contrition. You need to send a message, and he's got a demographic that supports him. And if you show any downward departure, aka leniency, that's only going to embolden other people.
Gene, is there any chance you think that the judge doesn't give him life?
Oh, yes, yes. He's 28 years old, and it's possible the federal judge, given deference to the guidelines, which aren't mandatory, if he gets 50, 60 years, that's a lot of time. And I want to go back to why I think the defense attorneys were just brilliant. If he had gone to trial at the state level and he was convicted before the federal trial, or before the federal sentencing. And Mark brought up a good point. You're not convicted till the sentencing. If he had been convicted first at the state level, he would have gone to Sing Sing, okay? Likely. On July 14th of this year, I was in two places that are important for this case. I stayed at the same hotel, the Hilton, and I did a tour of Sing Sing. Let me tell you something. Federal prison is a lot better than Sing Sing.
Yeah, they call it Club Fed, I think, for a reason. Do you think, Mark, that did the feds? I was thinking about this earlier. Did the feds kind of help Luigi Mangione in a way? It was kind of controversial that they decided to get involved and also charge him. And now, in the end, them doing that may have helped him get out of these state murder charges and end up in a better federal prison.
There was a letter that circulated yesterday that was apparently filed under seal by, I believe, the lead lawyer in the Manhattan DA's office. And it was filed under seal July 2nd. So do the math, 6 weeks ago. The feds knew that the state prosecutors, Alvin Bragg's office, was very worried in this 1.5-page letter that this is exactly what they thought the defense was going to do. When the state court judge ruled, they brought the double jeopardy motion once before. The judge denied it without prejudice and said the key words, or the magical words, it's premature. So that telegraphs, okay, if there is a conviction or acquittal, bring it again. That's exactly what they did. And the prosecutors on the state side saw that coming. So there is somebody had suggested to me today, is there some payback here? Because as I mentioned earlier, Todd Blanche is now the Attorney General. Todd Blanche was on the receiving end of Alvin Bragg, the new DA, when Alvin Bragg brought the Trump prosecution in the Manhattan court and was not a big fan of Alvin Bragg. I mean, there are so many cross currents here. There are so many political kind of data points. I'm sure everybody would deny that there's ever any kind of motive, but you just have to say to yourself, human nature sometimes, if you could stick it to somebody who you think stuck it to you, there is that urge.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Mark Geragos, Gene Rossi, appreciate you both for coming on, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.